This is kind of weirdly a math question, actually, in the reading section. We don't need to do any math, but we need to understand it. So let's take a look. Recent measurements of the mass of the W boson were notable not only for the mere fact the particle's mass differed from expectations, so not only differed, but for the blank of that difference. The measured mass of the W boson was 7 standard deviations higher than predicted by the standard model of particle physics. So a couple things that are very familiar to us if we've done a lot of these vocab questions. We do have that colon, right? And why do we use that? In general, we use that to provide some sort of extra information to kind of answer a question that's being raised by the first part before the colon. And so basically, that's what they're doing here. But for vocab purposes, that are also really useful because it means there's some repetition and we can usually use that in some way to fill in the blank. But it's not like we can just kind of put the word standard deviation in that blank. It doesn't quite work that way. But we should know from math that standard deviation is a measure of spread, right? So if it's 7 standard deviations higher, that's big, right? And so that's kind of what they're saying. It's not only that it differed, but it differed bigly, as Donald Trump would say, right? It differed bigly. And so that's also another kind of structural thing in English is this idea of the not only, but also. Sometimes we use that structure to kind of like amplify something, to say it's, not only is it hot, but it's scalding, it's burning, like that's a way to kind of up the ante a bit. So that's really what's happening here. And so hopefully with all these clues, you can kind of feel like the answer is scale, right? It's not only that there was a difference, but that the scale of that difference, 7 standard deviations, was so large, right? That's really, really far up. Basically, anytime you're more than 2 standard deviations away from something, you're an outlier. So 7 is crazy. The other words just don't really make a lot of sense. We never really get the cause of the difference. They don't tell us that after the colon, so we just, that doesn't make any sense. We don't have that cause. We just know that it is different. We don't know why it is different. It's not that we're surprised, I guess. I don't know. The existence doesn't really make sense here. Like, I get that we could fit that in the blank. It's notable not only for the mere fact of the particles the particles differed from expectations, but for the existence of that difference. It's honestly just repeating what we've already said. Like, we already kind of made the point that it's surprising that there's a difference. So we need to add something new. That's what the not only, but also is for. It's saying some new thing. It's not a repetition in like the literal sense. So that doesn't make sense. And again, there's no implication in the same way there's no cause, right? What caused this? The implication would be kind of almost more like an effect. Like, what does that imply? What does that suggest? What are we supposed to learn from this difference? Again, we don't get that. We don't get that in the part after the colon. So here, I think we are actually using the colon quite a lot to at least eliminate the other answers. But I think more importantly, there's a lot of clues that tell us that's about the size of the difference. Hopefully, again, if you knew what standard deviation was, that was also really obvious. But notice though, I guess all these wrong answers, they don't completely make no sense in the blank, right? They fit in a way that we wouldn't just like hear that they're wrong. So that's why it's not just about filling the blank. It's about filling with something that has evidence based on other parts of the passage. So we don't just listen for the right answer, really try to prove it with some other evidence from the other sentences.